Brought to you by PrayLatin.com, makers of prayer cards featuring complete English phonetic renderings of Latin pronunciation.
I wish to address the events which in this past week, of which you may or may not be aware, have disturbed the peace and unity of the Church in the Diocese of Charlotte. I wish to address them precisely because these events, far from giving the evident signs of the work of the Holy Spirit, appear to me to be works of death, fomenting disunity, perverting truth, and utterly lacking in charity. The disturbance has arisen because of two documents, both made public anonymously. One document was an anonymous letter last fall, presuming to give Bishop Martin instructions as to how to exercise his office as bishop. It was selectively distributed with what seems to be the purpose of becoming public, which did happen. The other was an anonymous leak of a confidential document containing the bishop's proposals for the celebration of the liturgy, which was distributed by the bishop only to priests of a subcommittee established by him and to the priest of the presbyteral council, so that these priests only could offer the bishop their advice and counsel, as is our responsibility.
Now, the question, of course, is that some people always have. What is it we're fighting for? Why are we fighting for whatever it is we're fighting for? And there are a lot of different answers. The most basic level, we're fighting against a revolution. There was a revolution in the church. Now, some of us say the revolution was completed at Vatican II and everything else afterwards was the mop-up operation. Others say it wasn't Vatican II, but its implementation. And it really doesn't matter what the right answer is for the typical layperson. Yes, there is a correct answer, and God willing, we'll get a pope who will appoint bishops who will zero in on the correct answer and do what needs to be done to rectify the situation. But for the rest of us, this is an argument that we have. But this is all about the revolution in the church itself at its core level. And Dr. Anthony Esolen posted, I think, something very useful to X that I wanted to really share with people, because at the end of the day, this is what we fight. This is why we are fighting against the things that we do, and why bishops like Bishop Martin and Abbot Solari need to really take stock in everything going on. For those who don't know, Dr. Anthony Esolen, he's author, he's the writer or translator of 30 books on culture, language, poetry, and Christian faith. He's well known for a translation of the Divine Comedy by Dante, considered one of the best, like, sort of modern translations. You want to read, the Inferno, the Purgatory, and the Paradise in more contemporary English. Dr. Anthony Esolen's is the one you probably want to go look for. Here's what he had to say. The underlying message that Catholics received from Vatican II was that the Church had changed with the times, and that much of her heritage was old and musty and no longer of any use. Also, that much of what she had taken for granted as true was not so. I'm not here speaking of the actual documents of the Council, which very few Catholics read, or the writings of Paul VI, but of what filtered down to the parishioners at the very time when all previous understandings of the world were thrown open to question in often shallow and irresponsible ways. So then, this is how Joe Catholic tended to think of things, because everything around him, from his own decaying culture to the priest at the pulpit, from Star Trek to MASH, said that old ways were dead and old moral understandings were dusty and useless. Why don't we fast for midnight if we're going to receive communion? Vatican II. Why isn't it necessarily wrong if a college boy and his girl sleep together? Vatican II. Why did they get rid of the statues of saints in the parish church? Vatican II. Why isn't it so bad, after all, if Mr. and Mrs. O'Boyle get a divorce, since they can't stand each other? Vatican II. Why do we have guitars at Mass? Vatican II. Why don't we say this prayer and that prayer and the other prayer anymore? Vatican II. Why does the religion teacher in high school do values clarification instead of theology or catechesis? Vatican II. Why is the pill all right, even if the Pope said it wasn't? Vatican II. Now let's pause there. The Council didn't say anything about any of those things. But people always say Vatican II changed it. This wasn't to blame Vatican II. It was just a feature of the mental and attitudinal world. Old ways were gone, and new ways were on the move. And eventually, even the Pope or some other Pope of the future, here I think of Jackie Gleason sputtering, homina, homina, I'm the Pope of the future, will come around. But even if he didn't, what would it matter? And he's not wrong. This is what we fight for, or more likely what we fight against. There was a revolution in the church. We could disagree on the specifics, but the result was clearly the attitude. The old is bad, the new is good. We watched the new get implemented, and guess what happened? Religious vocations collapsed. Vocations to the priesthood went into free fall. People stopped making use of the sacraments. Fewer people going to confession, fewer people receiving the Eucharist, fewer people going to Mass. Depends on the number you look at. Some percentages say 13% go to Mass. Others say 17%. Doesn't really matter. Very few people go to Mass on a regular basis. And that is what we fight against. All the changes that came. Vatican II didn't say anything about whether people should get divorced or not. People say it did, and they invoke the council because the council changed its orientation of the church. Cardinal Roche and Cardinal Hollerich, Cardinal Gresh, three important figures at the Synod on Synodality. And they all said the traditional Mass was inappropriate for the new ecclesiology of the church. That came from Vatican II. Ecclesiology is the theology of the church and its relationship to the world, what its mission is in the world, and what its relationship to God is. Before Vatican II, you didn't have bishops and priests putting such a heavy emphasis on making a better world. Their emphasis was on the gospel. And all we hear from every single pope since the council, including the current one, about going out there and making a better world. The better popes from the last few decades and the worst ones, all on the same page, to varying degrees. It is a man-centered orientation. The council fathers at Vatican II admitted that it was a man-centered orientation. That was the revolution, with predictable consequences. And that is what we fight against, is that revolution and its predictable consequences. Whatever a restoration of actual Catholicism looks like, everybody has their own guesses, or whatever the mechanism will be, I tend to think it won't be until we're on the other side of the material chastisement, as prophesied by Our Lady in numerous apparitions, as well as a lot of other mystics who had church-approved or tacitly approved prophecies. They all say the same thing. Whenever we get through that point, whoever's around after that will get to witness the glorious restoration. But until then, we fight. And the chief mechanism for fighting isn't just running your mouth, being mean online. It is tackling those sins that keep you separate from God, working on those sins of bad habits, growing in piety, getting to know the saints, picking up devotions, keeping a more Eucharistic life, more sacramental life, becoming a better Catholic. But that is what we fight for. All right. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments, please. Like and subscribe if you haven't. It absolutely does help. Sharing this on social media helps a lot too. And please pray for everybody we spoke about today. Not here to rile you up against anybody. Pray for them. First law of the church is the salvation of souls. Let us not lose sight of that. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.